that's a tough job. And I know Peter talked about it a little bit, but code enforcement is probably the hardest job, I think, certainly in my department, if not in the county. You have people that are very passionate about protecting their property values, in some cases protecting their health, and it can get a little bit ugly sometimes. And it puts us in a tough position. But if you ever have questions, we have really good code enforcement officers. They're always happy to talk to you. And if you can't get a hold of any of them, you can always call me. The other thing that I mentioned was the sidewalk construction inspections. We have been working with the Housing and Building Association to come to an agreement on who constructs sidewalks, when they construct sidewalks, when the financial assurance is provided to make sure that those sidewalks don't fall apart, and ultimately inspection of those sidewalks to make sure that you and I, when we're walking down the street, actually have a sidewalk to walk on. We have come to an agreement that's going to go into effect on January 1st. It may not seem like much to say sidewalks in the county, but there's a substantial part of the county that is becoming urbanized. Falcon area, the Lorson Ranch area, Meridian Ranch, even Sterling Ranch, which is almost completely surrounded by the city, Cimarron Hills. There's a lot of areas that we do have sidewalks and ultimately have to maintain them. So the idea is we were trying to get more ADA compliant. We want people to be able to travel safely from their house, certainly to their mailbox, if not further, to enjoy park facilities, that kind of thing. So we've actually come to a resolution on an issue that, I kid you not, is about 30 years old. And to me, that is a great thing. When you can resolve an issue that's 30 years old, both sides kind of coming to a compromise on how it should be done. But ultimately, the end product of this is that we're going to have sidewalks that won't fall apart, that haven't been destroyed by a builder coming in and driving over the sidewalks. And it's something that we feel like we can maintain, because at the end of the day, the county takes those sidewalks on for maintenance. And we want to make sure that whatever we take is a quality product. So that's, I've been at this job for about 9 months. I've been with the county for about 9 years. And I can tell you that's one of the things that I'm the most proud of. It seems kind of trivial when you talk about sidewalks. And I've worked on things like wind farms and giant subdivisions. But to me, those are the kind of things that have a bigger impact on everyday people because they can get from point A to point B. And certainly in terms of ADA compliance, I think that's very important. I think that's probably it. I don't feel like I need to go through all of these numbers. I do want you to kind of look those over because it's pretty substantial in terms of the number of code enforcement cases that we get. I put on there that we get about 1,600 complaints a year. Again, that's complaint-based, so that's only if people call us. So that's 1,600 calls per year for what used to be 2 code enforcement officers to look into. Now it's 3. And if we go more proactive, you can expect this number to probably triple. So while only 5 of them turn into cases, a lot of times it's not something we can enforce on. There's a lot of activity out there, and we constantly struggle with kind of balancing property rights with people's desire to do whatever they want on their property. You have that issue versus protecting property values. So everything we do, ultimately, I think it's down to that when it comes to a hearing. So I'm going to sit down. I'm out of time. She's waving the sign at me. She started very subtly and then got very aggressive. So. I will note Peter probably went over 3 minutes. I think I went 2. So that's
Good morning, and thank you for having all of us here. As far as, so my job again is, my name is Roger Lovell. I'm the regional building official for Pikes Peak Regional Building now. So that in generally is the building department. So what is the building department here in our community? We're set up differently than almost every region across the United States. There are only a few other departments like ours. What we have is a regional building department, the city, the county, and then, with these guys also, Craig kind of touched on it a little bit, we also have Palmer Lake, Monument, Manitou, Green Mountain Falls, Fountain, and all of the other cities and towns inside El Paso County. the majority of building departments across the United States are set up in a manner where each city or county has their own building department. So you can imagine what that would look like here. We have basically 7 municipalities within El Paso County. And if each one of those had a separate building department, you've got a separate set of rules regardless of where you are. The way that back in 1966, the city and the county got together and created a regional building department. So we have one department with one set of rules all the way across the board. So I think that that gives our community a really unique advantage over a lot of other communities. Because people can come here and, at least from a building standpoint, follow the same set of rules wherever you go. Dave mentioned two counties. We also serve the city of Woodland Park in Teller County. Not Teller County, but the city of Woodland Park. And we also serve, I think, 14 different school districts. The state of Colorado oversees all school construction. And so anything that happens in a school has to be permitted through the state. Well, the state doesn't have the manpower, and they can't get those projects done in time. And, you think about working on a school, you've got that short window in the summer where you got to get those projects done. So the state passed some bills and allowed for pre-qualified building departments to serve schools, and we became pre-qualified and served the majority of the school districts in El Paso County. And we're able to do that for half the fee of what the state does, basically, which saves our schools a whole lot of money as well. Which I guess leads me into another topic of how are we funded. Pikes Peak Regional Building is funded solely through permit fees, through plan check fees, and through licensing revenue. There's no tax dollars associated with what we do. We're funded solely on what we bring in. We license contractors, and we license contractors because we want to make sure that when they go out and work on any one of your houses or your businesses, that they have the appropriate knowledge, experience, and most importantly, insurance and workman's comp. So I think we're all aware of the recent hailstorm that happened on the east side of town.
Yes.
And the need for, if you need a new roof, it needs a permit. We have 78 new roofers getting licensed this month. Storm chasers are here. And
When is my license going to be ready?
So that's 78 that came to us for a license. How many are out there that are working without a license? They're working without a license, they're working without permits, probably working without insurance. So one of the biggest things that the message that we're trying to get out right now is that the need for permits, while it can be cumbersome at times, is so that when you have a contractor working on your house, that you're covered, you're protected. Our job is also to go out and do all those inspections to ensure that the product that you're getting is code compliant and safe. So these guys get involved in the land use side of it. We're involved solely in the construction side of it, how the building is constructed. Is it safe? Is the electrical safe? Is the building's not going to fall down? That type of thing. Let's see. Dave also touched on boards. So we have, there's times where you want to do something, but it's not exactly, the code requires you to do something. Maybe you want to do it a little bit differently. We have 2 different ways of handling that. You can apply for a variance and go before our technical committee, which is one committee we have made up of architects, made up of an architect, an engineer, some building contractors, some mechanical contractors, and they'll listen to the differences in what you're trying to do and grant a variance. We also have some alternate materials and methods, ways of going about it, and we also have a licensing committee, and the licensing committee hears all the new applications for licenses, and also deals with complaints. Now, complaints for us mean a little bit different thing than what Craig was talking about. What we call a complaint, probably for lack of a better term, is work that's occurred without a permit. So if somebody starts a deck, if somebody starts a project without a permit, we call that a complaint. If that happens, the first thing we do is we go out and we notify the property owner, hey, a permit's required. And we give them the opportunity to go get the permit. If that doesn't happen, then we have a series of notifications throughout that. But if they do not get that permit, then we do issue a complaint on the property and file, it's very similar to a mechanics lien with the county assessor that ensures that before that property can be sold or refinanced, that work is either permitted or removed. That way, the next owner isn't dealing with the deck that was built without a permit. And we do run into those too. Record keeping is much better now than it was 10 years ago. So people who bought a house 10 years ago and bought a house with a finished basement and it never got caught, now they go to sell it, they find out the previous owner finished the basement without a permit. And that does happen. Home inspectors generally pick that up because the record keeping is so much better, it's so much easier. You can pull up all the permit history right on your phone. So it's really easy for the home inspectors to see if a permit was issued for that finished basement. And we do have ways of permitting those. We deal with those every day. They can be kind of tricky, but we try and do all of our inspections as minimally invasive as possible so that we're not requiring any drywall to be removed and just trying to establish that the basics have been met. We have about 50 inspectors across the board. We cover all of El Paso County, including Woodland Park. And if you make an inspection request before 8:30 in the morning, you get your inspection the same day, with the exception of the re-roofs. The re-roofs, because that's a very seasonal thing. We're looking at between, I've heard numbers of between 50 and 80,000 new roofs on the eastern part of the city. So 50 to 80,000 roofs, that's 50 to 80,000 inspections for us to do in a very short period of time. And we do bring on additional staff, but it takes time to train the staff, and it's also one of the most difficult parts of my job is letting people go when there's not enough work. So the re-roof queue does build up, and we might not get to the re-roof inspection the same day that the inspection is requested. But we are trying to do a lot of other things. You can, if you need a water heater permit as a homeowner, if you're going to do the work yourself, you can get on our website and obtain that permit online. 85% of the re-roof permits are issued on our website, which saves everybody a trip down to the building department or picking up the phone. We have electronic plan reviews, so plans can be submitted by architects, engineers, homeowners, and whatnot via our website, reviewed electronically, processed by the city and county as well, while we're working on the county part. And then get the approval without anybody ever having to come down and visit the department. We also have some neat tools on our website. Anybody can jump on our website, which is pprbe.org, and pull up permit history for any given address. There are subscriptions. If you subscribe to our website, then you can even go as far as downloading plans and whatnot for any given address and viewing plans. For inspections, we have a new feature that when you make an inspection request, you can just ask for a notification. The inspector will either, and our system automatically does it, it's not the inspector doing it, but the inspector, when he's about 30 minutes away, will trigger a text message or a voice call to the cell phone to let you know that we're about 30 minutes away. So with that, I think I'm out of time. So I'll leave the questions.
And before we forget, thank you all very much. Now.
Dave, do you want to help?
Would it be easier if I did the questions? Okay, why don't we start with Judith back here?
I'm sorry, I was late. What is the starting date for something that might have been built before permits? When were permits first required?
That's a good question. The The building, our records, again, goes back to our record keeping. If you go all the way back to 1966, our records are not very good.
So a house, if I bought a house that's built in 49 and added on to it in 51, I'm clear.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. That's a good point, because there's buildings built, you know, in the early 1900s, and clearly we have no permit history on those.
So late 60s is like your starting date.
Yeah, and we may or may not have record of it. What we generally use is the county assessor's database. And if we don't have record of it, we rely on the county assessor. If you're paying taxes on it, it's probably.
Judith?
Yes,
Sorry, June.
Okay,
You stood up correctly, I was just incorrect.
that's okay. Question, I didn't hear anyone mention the Urban Renewal Authority. What planning department is that under?
Well, a very good question. So, in the city of Colorado Springs, the Urban Renewal Authority is a separate autonomous entity from the city. We work very closely with them, but they have their own board. They have a new executive director that starts now, Katie Clemens. The URA works very closely with the planning department, as well as with the city's economic development division, but they are a separate entity from the city. In
Thank you.
some cities, the governing body acts as the Urban Renewal Authority itself, but in our case, they're separate.
Yes.
Could you explain your relationship with Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, how you interact, what your relationship is to that entity?
Well, we do participate in UCG. They have multiple different committees that look at different issues like traffic. Right now, Peter and I both are sitting on the Joint Land Use Study Technical Committee, which is looking at land uses in the areas around our military installations. So we are very active in terms of our engagement with PPACG. It kind of depends on the context of what you're asking about. But, you know, we look at PPACG is by definition area council of governments. So it's looking at big ticket issues. One of those, like I mentioned, is military installations, and not only the impacts of land use and development around the bases, but also the impacts, reverse, the impacts of the bases on residents in the area, particularly operations, supply patterns, that kind of thing. So we're participating in a drainage study on Monument Creek. We also, as I mentioned, participate with regard to traffic. We look at traffic modeling, what roads in the region are experiencing the heaviest volume, which ones are going to require joint cooperation to upgrade, they need to be upgraded. So we are very active.
Yes, sir.
Could you talk a little bit about the composition of that, the steering committee that's developing that plan and how that is expected to work?
Good question. So the steering committee was a mayoral appointment, 17 members. We have representatives from CONO, HBA, which is Housing Building Association, Regional Business Alliance. We have 4 at-large residents representing, we kind of divide the city into 4 quadrants and selected individual from each of the quadrants. We have representation from military affairs. We have, let's see, who am I forgetting? Colorado Springs Forward. If you go on the website, their names and bios are on there. We have representative from Urban Renewal. We have a planning commissioner. We have 2 council members. President Bennett is actually the chair of the committee, and Jill Gabler is the vice chair. Let's see, I feel like I'm forgetting someone. But it's a very broad,
The
and we have a
mayor
couple.
appointed.
Yeah, it's mayoral appointed. Now, they are not, we call them executive steering committee. They're not the ones that will be providing citizen input to staff and the consultant. they're the ones that will help the staff and the consultants make some key decision points throughout the process. The consultant, about 2 weeks ago, I guess it's been, they interviewed about 50 community-wide stakeholders or individuals that want to be interviewed. So we provided input to the committee about that, kind of what are some of the emerging issues or topics. But they really are more like a sounding board when we come to some decision making steps of the process. So we really try to make the committee.
And the county's pretty tied in.
So the county does not have a very good question. The county
I was
will.
waiting for that question.
Yeah. The county's really more
Thank you.
a staff level. We have also a staff level kind of technical committee, and they're going to be a stakeholder at that level, not at a steering committee. Really wanted that to be made up of non-staff.
This
Isn't there-
lady back here wanted to answer a follow-up.
Yeah, follow-up, isn't there an opportunity to participate in a citizen survey right now?
Yes, there is.
Yes.
It's on Conan
And
Civics-Land.
yeah, Jay's here, and if you have kind of like specific questions, there's surveys, there's gonna be mobile apps, there's gonna be, we're gonna experiment with these things called blackboards, huge blackboards in some strategic locations of the city where you can just write with the chalk, I guess. Your comments.
And you said Jay was here?
Jay Anderson, yes.
Now, let me have Jay stand up.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jay. If you wanna deal with any of the citizen engagement aspects of the Plan COS effort, search hashtag Plan COS on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Also, yes, there are surveys. There's the real central point of this is the city's website, so colorsprings.gov/plancos. We're trying to emphasize that, but yes, there'll be in-person opportunities to engage, so blackboards, selfie spots where you can post a selfie of what you know, here's me with the future of Colorado Springs, hashtag PlanCOS. If anybody, yeah.
And we hope, it sounds actually more difficult than it actually is. Well, actually, it's more difficult than it sounds, I should say. We're actually going to have a landline. So those of you that don't want to do a selfie, I just want to call with, provide a verbal comment. We will have that as well.
Back here.
What is the steering committee addressing again? I'm sorry.
Oh, it's the comprehensive plan. The city's
Okay.
comprehensive plan.
Has there been any consideration for any part of the housing continuum providers to be on that board and have any input on that steering committee?
The answer to your question is, we will also have separate subcommittees.
Okay.
Special stakeholder groups, so we'll obviously meet with the universities and colleges. Affordable housing is raising too, as one of the top topics. So the consultant will also meet with those individual groups, sort of as one-off to hear directly from them. There was a question about should they have a presence on the committee. I can tell you there's enough, probably at staff level, advocates for affordable housing that will not be forgotten. Certainly discuss.
How will the consultant connect with folks in that area of focus? Is it just going to be random selection, or just I'm sending out blind emails, or how's that connection going to be made? And the reason I ask is because lots of folks want to source Springs Rescue Mission, which is an excellent source of intel regarding housing here in the community, but then you also have folks like Gresham Housing, who I represent, who are in the middle between, rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing, and then you have folks like Rocky Mountain Community Land Trust who